And then the next match is a 6-man tag, Midnight Express and Dr. Death Steve Williams with Jim Cornette versus the Samoan SWAT team, Fatu and Samo and Simone Savage, best known as Tama or Tonga Kid, with the big kahuna, Oliver Humperdinck, which he looked just like Lou Albano when he came out there as well, man, I tell you. So we could go any different number of directions with all these 6 guys in here. About the match first, what did you think of it? I mean, it seemed like a lot of fun, and I'll tell you what, Dr. Death Steve Williams, I've not watched him in a while. I forgot what a ball of energy he was.
Yeah, that was the first thing that jumped out at me was, and Moose was commenting on, Steve, most big guys have that girth and everything, and because Steve didn't have that, and when he's in the ring, he's in the ring with guys that are relatively the same size. It's hard to notice on a TV screen just how big and thick he was. I mean, he was just a thick human being and tough. Like you just see, watch his legs, the ripples in his legs as he's moving or running around. 4-time All-American wrestler, 4-time All-American football player. That's a rarity in college sports, especially today. He, at some points, because he had that energy, and he brought that from his football career. Which again, Bill Watts loved, and Jim Ross, if you remember the commentary was always football, football, football. There were times that I think Steve would have been better served to try to pull that energy back a hair, let stuff breathe. But just seeing him, he was like one of those guys larger than life as the kid that I was in the dressing room. So when I get to watch something like that and seeing him alive and so robust and so Steve Williams, it's sad to think of him gone, because there was there was a human being there. There was this guy that was, a lot deeper than people would expect, but what a physical specimen he was. And the Samoans, I mean, every time I talk about the Samoans, I say this. In that family, it's in the genes. They all are great wrestlers. They know where to move, how to move around, how to get you over, do all of these things. It's just so second nature to all of them. That was my take on that match in general.
We're going to go back to Dr. Death and then we'll move on. Dr. Death, did you ever wrestle him in UWF or WCW? How was he?
Yeah, WCW. He was one of those guys. He would definitely work with you because he could go in there and pulverize if he wanted to. He was one of those guys, much like Haku. Like if you give him an arm bar or a headlock or something, you could tell just by the feel of his body that he could just flick you off if he wanted to, or just pick you up and squeeze you to death. Steve, I never saw Steve go to the ring and half-ass it. He was always like really going. And again, I think at times because of the style of character that he was, and because of the heft and the thickness, that there were times that if he would have slowed it down and planned on, say, like a bear hug or something, that it would have given him a lot more longevity in the ring. And I think it would have done a lot more to sell that particular point. But remember where he came from in UWF, Bill Watts was always, and Jim Ross were always pushing that football thing, football. And so I think he thought the guy that won, those national championships and stuff had to be that guy. And, it's a shame because I think if Steve had been under the right auspice, and I'm not suggesting that Bill wasn't the right thing or later Dusty, but if he'd had the right teachers at the right time to teach him those things, where as a big guy, you don't have to be going 900 miles an hour the whole time. That's for smaller guys like us. But just to let that settle in. And there was another point, another match, and we'll get to that in a second, or next week's episode, where the Road Warriors are facing off with the Towers, right, between Spivey and Sid, where at the very end of the match, after this thing starts to break down, there's that face-off between Animal and Sid for about a half a second, and they start going at it. I looked at Chris, I went, oh my God, if they had held that for 5, 6, 7 seconds, you'd have felt the building just go, it would have been like the volcano rising, just let it breathe for just a second. And neither of them were at that level, so it's just those little things that you pick out. And, can cherry pick. But yeah, it's Steve Williams was, and I think later there was this like black mark on his career because of what happened with Billy Gunn in the Tough Guy contest, right?
Bart.
Well, first
Bart
of all, or Bart rather. Yeah, first of all, Bart's a big tough guy, right? But Steve, yeah, I mean, let's face it, you got a couple of tough guys in there. It's going to be whoever gets that lucky shot in someplace. And I thought that was sort of unfair to Steve that like suddenly all this shine that had been on him like suddenly just like washed away because of that one incident. Steve was a good guy, intense. I saw him one time at a bar called the Windmill in Columbus, Ohio. Me, him, Barry, Brad Armstrong, we drove out to this place. As I recall, it was at the end of a long straight road off of 70. And it was like miles out in the middle of no place. And we go in, the place is packed. And of course, as we go in, people start recognizing, not me, I was just a kid, but they recognize Barry. And of course, they recognize Steve and Brad. These two big guys come up. Turns out later they were football players for Ohio State Buckeyes. And there was like the bar. Steve is at the bar getting drinks, and they come up and start talking to him. And me and Barry and Brad are, I don't know, 8-10 feet away. And you hear these two guys over the music. It was really loud. And they go, "Oh, Steve Williams, 8-time All-American, blah, 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 blah." And Steve's like, nodding along with them. And one of them says to him something like, just one question, like, "Why'd you go into that fake shit?" And Steve's demeanor, like, there came the snorting, bull out, the toro. And the one walked away like he was going to the bathroom or something, but like from where we're standing, it's like we're watching the panorama. So Steve's now talking to the one guy, and the other guy, who I guess acted like he was going to the bathroom or something, walked about 10, 15 feet away, and he's going, like, sizing Steve up. I went to step forward, so I'd say something to Steve, and Barry goes, "No, just watch." And this kid takes a run and hammers Steve. Almost knocked him down. Like, he dropped his beer, like, took a couple back steps, and out came that snort. And I mean, when I tell you he beat the hell out of these two guys, it would be like Andre beating the hell out of two kids. I mean, he manhandled these two. And bartender told me, "Go get the car." Barry told me, "Go get the car." And as I was leaving, Brad came running up behind me. He said, Barry said, "Pull the car up behind the bar." So the bartender had told them to go out, that the cops had been called. So they told us he told them, who later told us I'm driving, said, I pulled with the headlights off, pulled to the back corner of the building, and we can see all these cop cars flying down the road, sirens going, right? As they pull in, we pulled out and drove away, and that was the end of it. But yeah, Steve was a legit tough guy. Yeah.
There you go. It's funny because I was actually talking to Bradshaw not too long ago, who was also in the Brawl for All, and he was talking about Bart Gunn as well, and he said he was a tough dude. I also said, like, Jack Doan was the referee, and I said, can you believe that the referee, who's not really a referee for boxing especially, would just send you back out there when you could tell that you weren't all home? And Bradshaw said, "Oh, I told him in the back, if I was standing, send me back out." So I was like, do you know what? In fairness to you, you were going to lose, but at least you were going to go out on your shield. But yeah, that Brawl for All did no one any favours, it turned out, in the end.
Well, the thing with Bart and Billy both, you see them as a tag team, right? Before I never met them, I'm thinking, okay, they're like Marty and Sean size, like, big guys, but, you meet them. I mean, they're huge. I mean, they're both big men, like monster guys, like huge guys. So yeah, both those guys, I'm sure, could handle themselves. And Bart, that after that, but it was well known before that. Basically, Bart's a tough guy, but Bart's take care of himself. So I'm glad to hear Bradshaw concurred on that.
Yeah.